Welcome to Stories with MFAYO, a space where I explore my curiosity and have real conversations with people who have built businesses that work for them. I am MFAYO, your host, and today's guest is Sarai Trinidad. Sarai, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited about this conversation. Before we dive in, can you tell us what you do?
Yeah. So I am what I like to call a funnel girl. So funnel meaning sales funnels. And I basically have my own business where I help creatives launch their businesses and build connections with their audiences through the power of sales funnels. So that's essentially what I get to do on a daily basis and I love it.
That's nice. Normally when you tell people funnel, they're like, "What is funnel?" And then when you try to tell them what funnel is, it sounds like website to them, right? And they're like,
Right.
"I have a website. Why do I need funnel?" How do you help these people explain
One
to
of the
them?
biggest yeah, like, that's one of the biggest things that I go through, especially with creatives. A lot of the time, it's just reframing what they see in terms of, like, if I bring up sales funnel, that's usually, like, a marketing term to them, and they
Yeah.
will either know what it is and have a, like, preconceived, misconception about it, like, that's not for me, those are for businesses, that's for brick and mortar, that doesn't work here, like, that kind of thing. Or they may not even know what it is at all. So, it depending on who I'm talking to, I go about it in 2 ways. So, essentially, the first is just kind of not utilizing the word funnel. I always try to think, "How can I talk to my client without using the word funnel?" Like, how can I share what a funnel does and the power of a funnel without using the word funnel? And so I've had to test that a couple of times to see like how it works. So like for example, when it comes to authors, I talk about the reader's journey and I'm like when you have a person who reads your book, right? They go on a journey through your book. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to marketing, right? When they build a connection with you, they're going on a journey and it's the reader's journey. And so I talk about that with my authors. And so sometimes with like other individuals or other creatives, I use
Mhm.
my storytelling to kind of come up with a
Yeah.
really analogy because as you mentioned, I get that question of, well, what's the difference between a website and a funnel? Like isn't it the same thing? And so when I always get that question, I'm just like, okay, what's the best example that I could possibly give for someone to understand the difference
The
between the
difference. Yeah.
yeah. Would you like me to share that example? I'm sure maybe your
Yes,
listeners
yes.
also have
Sure,
that
sure.
question. So, one of the ways I like to do it is picture you go to an athletic store, right? Maybe Nike or Adidas or like some store where your goal going into that store is I'm a new beginner to running and I want to run. Like I want to be a good runner, right? So you walk into this store. And when you walk into the store, especially if you've ever been into like a Nike store and Adidas store, there's so many different things to choose from. Like they've got clothes, they've got accessories, they've got shoes. Like there's a whole bunch of different things. They have a men's section, a women's section. And yeah, it's almost like a buffet. There's so many choices, there's so many different things, right? And you're looking at that and you could feel really overwhelmed for someone who is just starting like their running journey. They're like, wow, there's so much to choose from. How do I know like, what shoe I should get or like if I need to buy clothes, do I even need this like accessory or something for my running? Like, I don't know. That's kind of like a website. So a website houses everything and it houses all of the different things. And if you know what you're looking for, great. You can go in there and you can find it and get it, and that's cool. But for most people, they don't really know what they're looking for, or they think they know what they're looking for, but then they question because they see all of these different things and they're like, well, do I really need that? Or do I need this? Or, so there's always these questions. And so what a funnel does is it's essentially you walking into that store and a salesperson comes up to you and says, "Hey, how can I assist you?" And they're talking to you and you tell them, "Oh, yeah, I'm a new runner and I want to prepare myself to start running and eventually I want to run a marathon, right? They're gonna be like, great. And it's your first time running. Well, let me show you what the best thing for you as a beginner runner is. And they will walk you directly to where you need to go, to the right product, to the right solution to help with your goal, right? To help with what you're trying to achieve, right? They understand that, okay, if you're a new runner, you don't need the latest high end shoe, right? Like if you're a runner, maybe you don't need this type of equipment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the salesperson knows that, and that's how they direct you. They curate your experience to make sure that you're going in the right direction and choosing the right thing for what you're trying to accomplish. And then through that experience, they'll get to talk to you and get to know you and be like,
Know
oh,
you.
well, you want to run. Like, have you thought about the clothes you're gonna wear, right? You wanna make sure that you're not, running in tight formed clothing. You wanna have, like, looser athletic wear. Like, where are you living? Is it really cold? Is it hot? You wanna make sure that, you're running accurately. Like, those types of things that maybe new runners are not thinking about. And so that salesperson is letting them know, well, we have this collection for beginner runners when it comes to clothing so that you don't have to think too hard about what to wear. It's exactly what you need to wear. And so now they're developing you into a runner. And by the time you finish this interaction with the salesperson, you will have everything you need to be the best runner, right? You will have everything. You haven't ran yet, but you have everything you need to be the best runner, to run well and to do that marathon. And in your mind, you've already ran it. Like you've already done the thing because you went on this journey and this experience. That is the power of sales funnels.
Those
They
funnel.
take you on this journey that is curated just for you. And it takes you to your goal faster. It takes you to your goal more focused and not all over the place. And it allows you to experience each thing step by step and lets you in your mind change how you see it as well. Like you may have gone into the store thinking, oh, I'm just going to buy shoes, but you walk out of the store thinking, I'm a runner, right? It's that transformation. It's very
Yeah.
different. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I can geek out on this for hours.
Yeah,
But yeah,
because you
that
are
is
the
like
funnel
the
girl.
yeah, that is the biggest kind of explanation that I love to share about the difference between a website and a funnel. And as you heard and your listeners heard, like this is powerful. Like if you can do this and do this right for the people that you're trying to connect with,
Mhm.
you're going to have powerful, deep connections with people who are not only going to enjoy what you put out, but you're also going to bring transformation into their lives, which I think is the most impactful and beautiful thing.
Huge difference between that and website. Huge,
Very much
huge
so.
difference. Oh, wow. Wow. It makes so much sense. So you did walk on the stage of Funnel Hacking Live, right?
Yes, yes, I did.
You received that golden plate, right?
This one right here. Yeah.
Ah, and then side by side, you took a picture with Todd and Russell. How was that
Mhm.
moment for you? How was that moment?
Uh, Honestly, I kept replaying, like, while I was waiting for my turn to go on stage, I kept replaying, "What am I gonna say? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna, like" and the funny thing is when you get on stage, all of that goes, like, to the drain. It
Oh,
goes to the
wow.
trash, because the minute I walked on stage, like, my mind went blank, and I just enjoyed the experience of being on stage. I didn't even really know, like, where I was going or what I was supposed to do because I was so focused in line waiting for my turn and, like, "What am I gonna say? What am I gonna do?" And then none of that actually happened. Like, I was
Oh,
like, "I'm gonna tell them this, and I'm gonna, make a cool joke or something?" It's just like it didn't happen the way that I wanted it to, like, in that regard, but I got to meet them, and I got
mhm.
to, like, have my picture taken,
Uh,
and then they had luncheon after
mhm,
that for
mhm,
all of the award winners, and I
mhm.
think that was actually the best part of
Oh,
getting the award on
wow.
stage. I mean, the getting the award on stage is huge because for you, it's like, I've accomplished something. I've
Yeah,
gone from this to this,
to that.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure anyone who is listening to this podcast right now probably can relate to when you achieve something and you get something and the rewarding feeling that you have after you've achieved said thing. And so I think that accomplishment within myself was really a proudful moment for me. And then the connections I made afterwards, just being in the luncheon with all these other award winners who also accomplished really amazing things, and I got a chance to make connections and speak with so many individuals who have just gone out and just made amazing, impactful businesses, and, like, being in those rooms are so great. So I think that was probably the highlight of winning this award was being in that room.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask you because people in that room, most of them have either two or more. So it means their businesses are making 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 million, right?
Yes.
Being around such people, I'm like, how is it gonna be? I've not, but I can liken it to normally when I go to a very good restaurant or like let's say five-star hotel, right? The type of restaurant that like makes me feel good and like at home is like a restaurant with this piano, live, slow music, a nice ambience, If I'm in that kind of environment, I'll be like, oh my goodness, MFI, you have to go find money. This is where you belong. You have to go find money. It motivates me than hearing any motivational speeches and all that. So that kind of environment, I can imagine you being around such people making kind of money. I can
Mm,
imagine the impact it will have on you. Yeah. So
definitely. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So what's the name of your business?
It's called Creative Commission Marketing.
Build creative commission marketing. Was there a version of you that doubted this was even possible for someone like you? What did
Absolutely.
like so how was a voice, So there's always a voice, either a still small voice or a loud one. Normally the loud one is not good for us, but they make
Right.
so much noise that we don't know what to do with it. So how was it?
Yeah. So I started this business a little over a year ago. And even before that, I was part of Russell Brunson's world for a little bit before I built my business. And there was a lot of like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like I loved funnels. I was like, wow, this is really amazing. And like funnels are impactful and powerful. And I could see all of the good things about funnels, but then there's like that inner voice that says, "Oh, well, like, can you really do that? Or is that something that you, you can do?" And then on top of that, I knew that I wanted to work with creatives. So when we think about creatives, there's all kinds of creatives. So, but the ones that I mostly focus on are authors, filmmakers, content creators. I have worked with a publisher before, so that side as well. But I really wanted to reach these creative individuals because that's kind of my background. And so I love creativity. And I realized that, wow, how funnels are really impactful for businesses. What would happen if we transitioned that into the creative space and then brought that to creatives and built
Mhm.
funnels around their businesses and what they're doing or their brands? And it's like, this is almost untapped water,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And a lot of creatives don't even know, as we talked about earlier, what funnels are or like the impactfulness or the importance. A lot of businesses, especially established ones, they do. They know what a funnel is. Like you don't have to sell them on what a funnel does. They
Mhm,
already know that. When it comes to creatives, not so much. So when I started this journey for myself, I had a lot of that pushback of like, is this even gonna be feasible? Like, I have no marketing background. Like, I came from a 0 marketing background. My background is education and, working in the entertainment industry in various assets, spaces, and things. So having that as my background had nothing to do with marketing. So I'm just like, me who has 0 in marketing is now going to be expert in marketing for creatives. Like, what? So there was always these contrary voices in my head of like, the biggest ones that a lot of people face, like, you're not good enough to do this. You're not knowledgeable enough to do this. Are people really going to listen to you? You know nothing. You're just starting. And so having to combat those voices with just the truth of the matter, right? Like when you are an expert, and I'm going to use the term expert very loosely because a lot of people think an expert means like PhD level, like they
Yeah.
have to know everything, like that kind of style. But what I've realized in business is that an expert is anyone who is a level or two above you, right? They
Yeah.
know more than you, and you can hold their hand and lift them up. That is an expert. And when I started to reshape my mindset on that and reshape my mindset on, I don't need to have all the pieces in the beginning. I don't need to know every single funnel right off the bat in order to be a funnel expert. Like I don't need to have XYZ plaque, this plaque. I didn't need to have it or to like accomplish all of these things in order to do this. What I needed was to be a few steps ahead of the person that I want to help and serve and then meet them where they were, right? So getting the preconceived notions out of my head of like this is what it looks like, this is the expectation, because I lived in that very big expectation bubble of this
Mhm.
is what it should look like, and that was not my journey at all. Like I didn't know everything. When I had my first client, I didn't know like much of anything. I was learning as I was going, but I knew enough that I was a few steps ahead of my client to be able to help and support them with what I had already built, the skill set that I already had. So that was kind of like the solution I had to, like, just combating those voices was, A, to focus on the truth of the matter and, like, not set the expectation here, but to really focus on, well, what do I have to offer and how can I serve? And starting from there versus I need to be at this caliber before I can help people or before I can serve, which is what used to stop me a lot. So, yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's so powerful. Seriously. Because it has always been all of us are challenged. It chases us everywhere we go, everybody. So
absolutely.
I was interested in how you handle yours. Yeah. Thank you so much. I like that. So getting certified, right, is one thing, but actually charging people for the skill is a whole different thing. So what was going on inside you the first time you put yourself out there as a professional, wanting to
Oh,
charge for
man.
money? Especially, I wanted to know the part that because sometimes you're done, right? And then you're good, but you kind of you don't even want to charge people. It's you're scared to do that.
Yeah, this is like the hard one, especially when you're starting out,
Mm-hmm.
because when I was starting out, so my very first client, I charged $500. And that to me was like the scariest number alive because I did not want to even say the price. Like when I met with my first client, well, before she became my client, when I met with her and we got on a call and we talked about what she's trying to do and the funnel that I could build for her. And it was a super simple funnel, so it wasn't super complicated. It was definitely, I was a few steps ahead of her, so I knew exactly what we could do to do
Mm-hmm.
this. So I was confident in that regard that I could do this and I could pull it off. But
Hmm.
then when it comes to like asking for the money, that's
Money.
when it's really difficult. And I forget who said this to me, but there was someone who told me that business is 80% mindset and 20% doing. And I take that with me everywhere I go. Like,
Wow.
that's exactly what it is. When you think about the conversation of money, it's always a mindset. Like, if you can't ask for the money, you always ask yourself why. And then after you get that answer, you ask yourself, okay, why that? And then why? And then
You
why
know.
till you to the actual real reason. Because most of the time, it has nothing to do with the client or like, oh, maybe they're not going to pay me or whatever. It has a lot to do with us and it has a lot to do with our mindset. So for me, I realized at that time that the reason why this is hard and why it's hard for me to ask for the money is because I feel like I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to do this. Even though I know how to do it and I'm competent to do it, I
Mhm.
still don't feel like I'm good enough to do this. So I should just do it for free and not charge. Or I should reduce the price. Like maybe not 500, but maybe I'll just ask for 100, you know? And so I had a really good mentor of mine who really nipped me in the butt and said, Sarai, you're going to be doing a lot more work than you think you are going to be doing. And you deserve to price accordingly. You deserve to add value to what you do, right? When you go to a doctor's office, the doctor will charge you whatever the price is to see them, even if they only just look at your sheet and they say, oh, okay, you're fine. They're still going to charge you that price. Why? Because of where they stand, their level of expertise, where they are, what they're doing. They know their value. And so they're not haggling you if you say, "Oh, well, no, I'm not gonna pay that because you only just saw me, so I'm not gonna pay that price." And it's like, no, they saw you and you got value from that, even if they didn't lift a finger except to look at your chart and tell you you're healthy, right? Because it could have been that they
Yeah.
looked at that chart and told you something different, right? But because they have that level of expertise, you can trust that, right? And another thing that same mentor did, which by the way, get a mentor. If you don't have one, like I always recommend it because like you learn so much. But my mentor had said to me about nobody knows like how much skill is required to do funnel building, right? Some people think, oh, all you're doing is just like putting in words and putting in images and just making these different pages and you're just building. And it's like there's so much more that goes into it. And then on top of that, the skills and knowledge that you have, right? Someone who's never done funnel building before doesn't have the set skills and knowledge you have. So when you think about how much time and effort you've put into your own education to get yourself to the skill level that you are, even if you're not quote unquote expert high level kind of person, right? But you took a course, you took a program, you learned on your own, you built the skill set. That took time. That took time to get there that the person who is hiring you is not willing to spend that amount of time
Doing
doing.
that. Mhm.
If it took you like 2 years to get your degree, right? Let's just say you got a degree. It took you 2 years to get your degree. Now you're at a skill set that those 2 years took you to get to. So you should be charging based on the fact not only the scope of the project and what comes in that project, but also how your skill set plays into it. So it's a lot of this going back to that mindset part, right?
Mhm.
The 80% mindset. A lot of this is changing your mindset on
Mhm.
the way that at charging, the way that you look at clients, the way that you look at money. Like right now in my business, I no longer charge the $500 because I've learned, what goes into a funnel, right? Which is what's going to happen. You're going to put out a price and you're going to say, here's my price, right? And this is what I charge. And then you're also going to realize I might need to charge more because I am spending a whole lot more time
Mhm.
on particular project. And
Mhm.
so the mindset starts to shift for you as you start to make progression, as you start to deal with clients. I mean, the very first individuals that weren't paying clients that I just voluntarily helped for free, which
Mhm.
I had two individuals that I worked with prior to my first paying client. And
Mhm.
I did those for free. And it wasn't necessarily just like a funnel build, but it was more like a I'm going to practice and I
Mhm. Mhm.
want this. And so that's what I did. Like I practiced with them and they were fine with it. They didn't use what I built, but they at least allowed me to use their business and have a real life scenario where I could like play around and like figure everything out. with the freedom to do so, because
Yeah.
not everyone is open to that. So I'm really grateful that I had that. But even if you don't have that, I'm an advocate of you can charge even if you have such a small like amount of skill set. You just need to have more than the person that you're
That's
doing the work,
true. Yeah.
And so the mindset is the biggest component and the biggest piece of a business owner's like day to day. You're going to always constantly have these different thoughts and these different things come in. And 80% of the time, you're fighting your mindset than doing the work in the office.
Oh, wow. Got it. So, do you have any traditional job? Are you doing any traditional job alongside what you're doing right now? Or yeah, you're into this full time?
I'm into this full time now. When I started, I was into this full time, but my backstory is I used to live in South Korea. So I was an English teacher in South Korea. And
Mhm.
because I was an English teacher for almost a decade in South Korea, I left the country and came back to the US with a heavy pension. So that was kind of like the basis of starting this business. So I was privileged and grateful to be in that situation where I could come back to the US. I lived with my parents and like they had supported me. And I had like my own pension that was from Korea. And I was able to utilize some of the funds there to
Mhm.
start this business, to start growing my skill set, and to start moving in that direction. And so I know that's not everyone's story, and for some people that's like the ideal. But I think either way it comes with its pros and cons because there were months at a time where there was no revenue coming in.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there were also times where I wanted to throw in the towel and say, I quit and let me go get a 9 to 5, you know, because it can get difficult.
Really
So
difficult.
I have like several colleagues who are also have their own funnel building businesses and they work full time. And I can only imagine like how much level of stamina, perseverance they need to be able to do that. And then they look at me and they're like, I could not have the courage to do what you're doing. So I feel like in both regards, it's a beautiful thing and to each its own. For me, I was blessed in this manner to be able to focus 100% on this. And I feel like it's definitely paid off in the sense that I've grown so much with my business and with myself to be able to move this business forward and make it be part of my life and enjoyable too.
So, were you thinking about business all along, like your whole life? Is it something that you wanted to do?
No.
Or it just happened? Or it just came to you?
No, for me, I really wanted to work in the entertainment industry. One of my biggest goals was like, I'm going to be a film director. You're going to see me in the Oscars. Like, I'm going to like make films and over time, like I love the entertainment industry so much. Like I've worked in so many different facets in the entertainment industry, which is why I was always connected to so many creatives. Like being able to be around a lot of creatives, like it's a very different world. Creatives are a very different group of people than people who wouldn't call themselves creative. I very much believe that everyone has a certain extent of creativity inside of them, whether they tap into it or not, which is something I found out as I lived on my own in Korea and teaching English, which was
Mhm.
completely opposite of working in the entertainment industry. I was not around creatives all the time. I was not making films. I was not doing like any of those things. But like living abroad, living in a different environment, a different culture, really opened my eyes to see that everyone has a semblance of creativity in some in some way, shape, or form. But for me, I always had this just desire to be a leader.
Mm.
So anytime like I was in school, I was like the person they'll be like, "Okay, we're going to have a group project." I'll be like, "Okay, I'll lead this group. How are we going to, assemble? You take this, you take that." And I would just naturally fall into leadership roles. And
Mhm.
even when I was working part-time jobs, I would get promoted a lot because they would see my leadership skills and managerial skills, and they would want to promote me just naturally because those were things that just flew out of me. And so, like, I always knew that the traditional 9 to 5 was never gonna work for me. Like, just because as a creative, that doesn't work for most creatives. Like,
Mhm.
we all have, like, very fluctuating schedules. Even, like, your most, like, popular or prominent individuals in the entertainment industry do not have a typical traditional 9 to 5 schedule either. So it really is not a thing. But I did live in a world where I did have to clock in and clock out, and I did
Mhm.
have to, live that kind of lifestyle. And what it showed me a lot of things, but one of the biggest things that I learned is that this is not what I want to do. Like, and that's one of the biggest lessons. Like, when you go through life and you go through a certain situation or a certain thing, you start to think, "Oh, okay, this is what I don't want." And that's a good thing. That's good data for yourself to know, "Okay, this is not what I want." Now I can think about, "Well, what do I do want?" Right? So now
Mhm.
I can eliminate something and start focusing on other things. So I feel like for me, working in those positions where it required me to show up, clock in, clock out, really helped me realize that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm not even sure what that looks like or how it will run or focus, but I want to do something else. And I've all had that mindset of, I want my own freedom. I want to be my own boss. So
Mhm.
that was like something that I've always desired because I've again, leadership skills, always had it. It's just been innate in me. I've always wanted to do leadership capabilities in everything. It's that
Mhm.
kind of skill that always runs with me. And knowing that about myself and knowing that I wanna be my own boss and I don't mind, like, getting into a leadership role that doesn't scare me, that
Mhm.
excites me, really made me realize more and more that I wanna work for myself or that I wanna do work for myself and then work with other people, but be held to my own self in terms of work, where I'm not having to connect to a boss in order to do my job or
Yeah.
can work with individuals and partner with them,
Mhm.
but at the
Mhm.
end of the day, a lot of what happens in my business is my decision, and
That's
that's what I
true.
wanted.
Very
And
true.
so I think over time, it's just cultivated and developed into being an entrepreneur, but it was never the road that I said I was gonna do. I didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm gonna start my own business. It's just kind of like I ran into this and it fit, and the puzzle piece just went click, and that was how it started.
Oh, wow. So, not having 9 to 5 alongside your starting your business is a scary, scary, scary thing because if you don't have money to pay your bills, where you sleep, even the car to drive, gas in the car to drive to your business, it's not possible. Your business is not. So I don't really poop on 9 to 5. It's something really special, that helps us not doing the 9 to 5 and going straight to the business from scratch. How do you sustain? Because a lot will be coming. Because the fact that you started your business doesn't means you are making money now. To be able to take care of all your bills and stuff like that. So how do you
Mm.
sustain the energy to keep showing up on the days when you are running on empty?
Oh, man. That's a
That's a
loaded
loaded
question.
question. No, yeah, yeah. Because
But,
without the 9 to 5, it's gonna be a
right,
lot. It's gonna be a lot,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
There's a
So,
lot
what
of
I think
pressure.
about Yeah, exactly. And what I think about a lot, and this is where I go. So, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus Christ, and so for me, that has been the grounding point in this business. And so there have been months where no clients, no revenue have come into this business, and I've had to test my faith so much so that I've had to say, "Lord, take the wheel. I do not know where, the funds are gonna come. I have these bills coming up. I don't have a single client, and month after month after month, the Lord would provide in many different ways. Like it would either be with a client that comes in and I get a, good deposit from them and we start working on the project and that deposit is enough to cover all of my expenses or what have you. Or I have a friend who comes to me and says, "Hey, a couple months ago, I borrowed this thing from you and I forgot to pay you back. So here's the money." And then I'm like, "Oh," and I totally forgot about that. Another is just, maybe I do a one off job of some sort. Like
Mhm.
before I started my business, I was doing a lot of focus groups. And so
Mhm.
sometimes I would have focus groups kind of like call me and be like, "Are you interested in doing this focus group?" And then that would like cover funds. So there have been so many ways where the Lord has kind of just showed up in my life. And it's really a test of my faith, like truly a test of my faith to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to have that consistent revenue happening in my business, not all the time, right? So how do I like deal with that mentally, right? The mindset is the biggest thing. And it's standing in my faith. That's what works for me is realizing and knowing that this business is not my own, it's of the Lord's. And so he's going to make with it as he will, and his will play out. Right. And then the second thing is just being a really good steward of what you have. Right. So if you know that you have one client and they're going to pay you for this particular project and you don't have any clients kind of lined up, or you're maybe not talking with anyone at the moment, or you're not seeing signs of another client on the horizon, being able to steward the funds that are coming in and steward them well, budgeting well, making sure that you're allocating the right funds to the right things,
Mhm.
even consolidating if you have to, and having those skills, those really important skills that everyone, regardless if you're an entrepreneur or not, should have those skills. Being able to steward finance as well and delay gratifications. There are some times where some months I've had to delay having something that I ultimately wanted to buy for myself or something that I wanted to get. And I've had to delay that expenditure because I don't have enough funds coming in. And
Mhm.
the delay doesn't mean it's a no, it just means it's later. So being able to have that kind of self control and that stewardship and that faith is how I move through the day to day. And again, back to the mindset, because mindset is just a really big thing when it comes to me and my business. There are some days where you will lack motivation to go to work. like and in any job, like any job you have, you will have days where like, I wish I could just stay in bed and I don't want to go to work, right?
Mhm.
How do you overcome that? You just do it.
Hmm.
Just
Hmm.
get up and do it. And
Mhm.
if you do one thing, and this is one thing that I love, and I believe it's in the book Atomic Habits, it
Mhm.
talks about like the 1%, right? If you show up and you do 1% every day, by the end of the year, you'll have accumulated 365% of things done, right?
You're right.
Just by showing up every day and doing the 1%, just 1%. And having that perspective in my mind says, okay, on those days where I feel like, ugh, I don't want to show up or I don't want to do things, if I just show up and I do that 1%, like it's better than not doing anything, right? And so getting into that mindset of like, let me just show up and do the 1% and do it anyways. Just get the 1%. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to do the 50-mile long to do list or check off all the boxes and be super extra productive, but just do the one thing and keep it moving. Like that has been the driving force when those days come in my life where I'm like, I don't want to do it.
Ah, that's so nice. That's so nice. Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to my accountability group. Hi, I love you guys. This question, it's for you guys. It's from you guys to her. Let's say those normally, most especially the women, right? Most of them have 9 to 5, and then what we're doing as well, right? Our business, right? And
Mhm.
so they always saying they don't have the time. It's so hard to, balance both. And the 9 to 5 is eating up a lot more. So what advice do you have for them or us how
Mm.
to balance, to be able to balance both? And and then move our business to the next level? How do we balance the 9 to 5 and then the business we're creating?
Wow, yeah, it's a really hard question, and honestly, it
Because
really
that's not even your route because you
yeah.
did not. Yeah.
It for me, it really depends, right? Like, it depends on who you are and how you operate, and I think if you can first and foremost figure out how your body operates, right? Everyone has, like, their own circadian rhythm of, like, when they are most productive, when they are most tired, when, there's all of these things. If you can figure that out for yourself, like, if you can figure out, like, "How can I make this work?" Well, again, focus on that 1%, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a 5-mile long list, right? If you're married and you have kids that you have to take to school, to their, school, and then you have to go directly to work after that. And then when you come home, like you're too tired to focus on it. Well, maybe that's not your time to focus on it, right? Maybe your time is an hour in the morning or maybe 30 minutes while you're waiting in the carpool line to pick up your child, from
Mm.
school. Whatever that looks like to you, right? Plug it in where you can and don't be too hard on yourself when it comes to this expectation of, I need to do X, Y, and Z. Because as women, at least I will raise my hand to this, we constantly deal with the comparison factor where we are constantly comparing ourselves to other women or comparing our lives to other people's lives. And I
Mm.
think that is like the detriment of growth. Comparison is always the detriment of growth. And the more you look at other people and you're like, wow, that woman, she has this, this, and that. She did all of this. When you continue to compare yourself to that person, you're always going to live with this level of expectation that is not your own because both of you are very different. Different
Mhm.
environments, different lifestyles, different choices. Both of your lives are very different, much like the fingerprints that you have on your hand.
Mhm.
Like it's very different. So if you continue to compare yourself to other people, it's not going to help with your growth. Compare yourself to yourself. So
Yeah.
if you're going to do this, and this is something that I do all the time, and my advice is if you're going to compare yourself to yourself 3 years ago, 5 years ago, right? Are you moving forward in your vision and in your goals than you were a year ago, than you were 3 years ago, right? Looking at that and then looking to your future self, right? Don't look at, oh, I want to be the next Tony Robbins. Look at, I want to be the next Sarai who does this, this, and that. This is my vision for my life. This is where I see myself. And going towards that, not towards what it looks like for someone else, if that makes sense. And the 1% and the mindset. I think these are just like the biggest things that I would share. Don't compare yourself. Do 1%, even if it's a small thing, even if you're only able to dedicate, 30 minutes or an hour, a day. Find out what works for you and works out for your schedule and figure out how you can plug that in and then do that 1% every single day. You will make progress. And then the mindset. You can do it. You can do it. You can continue to move forward. And much like meeting other women who are being successful, not to compare yourself to them, but to see what's possible,
Mm.
right? Every woman has their own journey and their own struggles that they're going through and their own things. But when you get together in a community and you start to engage, much like accountability groups, right? You start to engage and talk about what you're working on, what you're struggling with. And you never know. Someone else could say, oh, I had that same struggle. Let me walk alongside you and help you get through that. Or
Mhm.
here's some encouragement for you. That's super powerful and it's super impactful. And I think women should continue to stay connected to each other because that's how we lift each other up, not to compare each other and say one is better than the other or they have higher, expectations for life than I do, but to lift each other up and say, oh, she's at this level, but I'm at my own level. And that's okay. And let's lift each other up from where we are and
Yeah.
continue growing as a community. And so that's like my biggest advice.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great. I like it. I like it a lot. So, my last question for you, and this is special to my heart. Is there a proverb or a wise saying you grew up hearing that has stayed with you and shaped how you move through life.
Yes. Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. It's a Bible verse that has always been told to me so many times, but it's so true. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and
Mm,
lean not on your own understanding. In
mhm,
all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And so that has really stuck with me a lot in my life. And the more that I trust in the Lord, the more I gain his understanding, right? Not just mine. I can only see this much, and the Lord sees all of this. And so that has really grounded me. It's rooted me. It's continued to move me forward. And
mhm.
even in this day and age, I look to that and I look to the word and I look to his truth to be able to steer me and guide me every step of the way.
Oh, that's so sweet. I like it. Thank you so much. Sarah, thank you so much for trusting me with all your story, right? And to everyone listening, I hope this story gave you the courage to take one step forward. I am going back to revisit this conversation and really marinate on everything she shared. Okay. I am personally taking 3 steps forward this conversation. I'll see you next episode. Bye.